Ryan, let's move on to the gain of function news that broke yesterday. We can go ahead and roll this clip of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., now obviously Secretary of Health and Human Services, talking as Donald Trump signs. This is one of those classic Donald Trump second administration EO signings in the Oval Office, where he's flanked by Marty McCary, Jay Bhattacharya, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He is signing an executive order that against gain of function research. So let's just take a listen to this as the E1.
Gain of function is an historic day, the end of gain of function research funding by the federal government and also controls by private corporations on gain of function studies. This was the kind of study that was engaged in by the United States military and intelligence agencies beginning in 1947. By 1969, the CIA said that they had reached nuclear equivalency, that they could kill the entire U.S. population for 29 cents a person.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. went on for a couple of minutes there, going back into the history of gain of function research. But what the EO did was restrict federal funding for research known as, quote, gain of function. And what's interesting about that, Ryan, is that Fauci likes to stretch. You know, he used to say he was enhancing pathogens. You may remember that infamous exchange he had with Senator Rand Paul, but it wasn't quite, quote unquote, gain of function. So maybe there are still ways for the medical establishment that wants to continue. Desperately, many people want to continue doing gain of function research, wiggling around the boundaries of this. But I think you actually checked in with Ebright on this, didn't you?
Yeah, and I read the EO, and it's pretty tight. I mean, the language is pretty tight, so I think it'll be difficult for them to get around it. But it really focuses in an annoying way on it says quote unquote countries of concern, e.g. China. It's like, okay, fine, whatever, but like, it doesn't matter where the research is done.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get a pathogen out in the air, like it can be in Toledo, it can be in China, it can be in Sierra Leone. Like people travel, there's airports everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So like just focusing on countries of concern, it's Trump's kind of obnoxious xenophobia manifesting in a place to where it's like completely unnecessary.
Well, I don't know if it makes anybody feel better if we're even doing it here.
Right.
I mean, maybe feel a little better.
Why would that be better? Like, it's cool. We're going to do all of our gain of function research on viruses in your backyard.
Yeah.
Not in China.
Yeah, North Carolina.
It's going to be downtown Washington, D.C.
Right.
You're going to be fine. You got to make America great again for gain of function research. But yeah, so I asked Richard Ebright about RFK Jr.'s claim there, which if you could hear him, what he was saying was gain of function research has basically produced nothing of value for the scientific community. And so Ebright, he's a molecular biologist at Rutgers. He's an outspoken critic of a lot of the scientists involved with this research and also the research itself. So I asked him for his take. I was like, really? Like blanket? Zero? Nothing? And he says it has added nothing of substantive value. It has had zero civilian applications. It has not contributed to the development of any vaccine or therapeutic agent, and it has not contributed to preventing or responding to pandemics. I mean, its origin and its financing is mostly around bioweapons, like in the military capacity, both whether it's the U.S. investing in it, the Pentagon, or the Chinese military. That's what really gave it its boost, and particularly after the anthrax attacks back in 2001, 2002, that's when all of this money started flowing into it. So, and they've kind of then retconned some rationale for some civilian applications, but according to Ebright, so far, like zero, like nothing has come of it. And it's interesting to think about the Wuhan Institute of Virology. So, like the goal of that institute was to identify pandemics early, pathogens that could be of concern, to become a pandemic before they spread too far.
Yeah.
I think the evidence is clear that they produced the pandemic.
Yeah.
Setting that aside, let's say they didn't.
It's the one thing you agree with the CIA on.
But it started in Wuhan, so it started like next door to them.
Yeah.
Their whole job is to look around the entire world, identify potential pandemic viruses, and then control them before they become a virus.
Yeah. Thank you.
It happened right there, and you still didn't stop it.
Great work.
At very best, you didn't start the pandemic, but it was next door to you, and you didn't stop it. How are you going to stop one that happens, thousands of miles away from you? Anyway, so it's not a great track record. That brings us to our friend of the show,
Jeffrey Sachs,
who chaired the commission that looked into the origin of COVID. And so, speaking of Wuhan, there's another locale that also gets brought up here. Let's roll Jeffrey Sachs here.
I'll tell you a sad truth, also a little surprising. And I have to admit, what I'm about to tell you is only 99% sure. But my view, based on very extensive work over the last 4.5 years, is that COVID came from the University of North Carolina, which is the leading researcher on beta coronaviruses, working with the U.S. government on a set of grant proposals that identified putting in the viral change that created SARS-CoV-2. It's a grim truth. It's ugly. It's been hidden from view. The reason I mention it in this context is we don't have any global governance that is effective right now to control the manipulation of dangerous pathogens like the manipulation that created the pandemic. And when it happened, and officially it took 7 million deaths, but probably if you count all of the deaths associated with COVID, it was probably closer to 20 million deaths. Even when that happens, it's never properly investigated. It's covered up. It's hidden from view.
And so that's actually quite a plausible claim. Like if you want to look into it, just Google kind of Ralph Barrick, who's the head of the program there, who was working directly with people in the Wuhan lab. He led the project that came up with basically the recipe that appears to be the thing that led to the creation of COVID later. And I think when you understand the role of UNC in the origin of COVID, it helps to explain why there wasn't an investigation. Because
even our own funding of Wuhan either way.
Right. And so from early on, you're like, wait a minute. If this was the Chinese and it happened in Wuhan, well, where's the U.S. propaganda apparatus to start, saber rattling and, banging the drum about how awful China is?
If anything, it was, if you were blaming China, Nancy Pelosi was calling you racist.
Right. So, and so it's like, oh, I see why, because the U.S. was intimately involved in this as well. And so both China and the U.S. then have motivation to be like, what'd you say? It was these rednecks in Wuhan, buying pangolins. Yeah, let's go with that.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
So finally, we back at the Hill hosted you set this up. It was a fascinating debate between Johns Hopkins professor named Gigi Granville and an MIT professor named Kevin Esvelt. And this was I think we went for an hour having a pro gain of function person and an anti-gain of function person talk about whether it's ultimately valuable and whether the costs are worth the benefits of doing the research. So if you're curious in hearing out both sides, I would recommend taking a look back at that, because it was very, very helpful for me to hear both of them.
And we kept trying to pin her down on what has it produced.
Right.
Not that science, it's okay. Science doesn't always produce results. That's what science is. You have a hypothesis, you explore it, and sometimes it goes down a rabbit hole and your hypothesis was wrong. So that alone is not a reason not to do it. If it's extremely dangerous and you're putting the whole world at risk, that's can be a reason not to do it.
Yeah.
But she never, you guys can go back and watch it if you want, but to my mind, she never effectively presented to us anything that made us feel like, oh, okay, that is a benefit that we have derived from this research, which can be weighed against the risk of a global pandemic and millions of people dying.
Yeah, I mean,
so then we can balance that out. I was left with, well, we know the risks.
Yeah.
Even if you don't think this happened in the lab, which I think it did, but even if you think it didn't, it could. There are leaks all the time. So we know the risk, but we don't know the benefits. We haven't seen anything yet.
I remember wrapping that segment and being like, thanks so much to both of you, hearing both of it out. And Ryan, you just jumped in and you're like, think it's pretty clear who won.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God.
She didn't like that.
I don't think so, but I was really persuaded.
We'll shoot the
by Kevin,
messenger.
too. So yeah, go ahead and take a look at that if you're curious. And on that note, let's go ahead and get to our second guest of today's show.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.